Welcome to another episode of the Connected Factory podcast. And today it's a little bit of a different setup because now in Germany and I are both in the studio and we have a very special guest with us, David from ITOT Insider. So David, who are you? Yeah, I know who you are, so don't get me wrong. but everybody out there who not might heard about what you're doing, what are you passionate about? Yeah?
For digitalization or ITOT geek, if you want to call me that way. So who am I? I'm actually a mathematical engineer. So I studied deep learning things and support vector machines and all the cool AI stuff back at university. And then for some reason I got passionate about model predictive control. So my thesis was actually about implementing MPC in distillation column. And that led me to start working in the chemical industry, actually. And it was basically a coincidence because honestly, I didn't really see the link between mathematics and data and the chemical industry when I was still studying. For me, that was something like, this is for chemical engineers and mechanical engineers and, that type of profiles. So almost coincidentally, I started working in the chemical industry for a well-known German chemical company, BASF. And started as a data scientist, but soon found the passion to be in digital operator stuff, data, cybersecurity. So I would say a bit more on the infrastructure / platform side of things. So in my 12 years there I got the opportunity to lead one of the I would say biggest teams of digitalization engineers. Working on, I would say, the entire Antwerp site, which is one of the largest chemical sites in the world. I was also able to lead their EMEA program for Industry 4.0 and also their global cybersecurity program. So lots of fun things. And then 3 years ago, I wanted to do something totally different. So I switched over from end user to your site, basically. So from end user to software supplier. Wanted to see other industries, wanted to learn some new skills. So I started managing a company called Analytics for Industry, which is basically an industrial data ops solution provider. And then I was sitting in these meetings, and this is I would say, the perfect lean way, I would say, into this episode about learning and about, understanding each other, etc. Because I was sitting in these meetings and I was really at this intersection between IT and OT. And I still see myself sitting literally in the middle of a table where one side was IT and the other side was OT. And we were in a full day workshop, and it took us a couple of hours to, at a certain point, to understand that the things we were saying. So on both sides of the table, we were saying the same words, but there was not the same understanding of these words. And then together with Willem, who is a former colleague, and also because we just wanted to do something together, brought us to launch the ITOT Insider. Started as a blog, just us writing random articles on things we encounter while doing our job. Willem still in the chemical industry, and then me, I would say, on the other side. On the dark side, maybe. I don't know. No, that's not on the dark side. It's a bit on the dark side. As on both sides, we just started writing articles. We saw that created quite some traction. The blog started to grow. So we also added a podcast to that as well. And then, since now, we also added our ITOT Academy to it. And I'm sure we'll discuss that later as well.
Full circle moment, I would say. Really coming from the pain, understanding it from there, and then trying to build something to help on top. This is also a little bit on this is also why we have this, I would say, Jeremy's special episode set up here now, because this is also what we discovered back then. So this education gap, and you're talking about the same stuff from just two perspectives. I think in the process industry, it's super pronounced because they also use a lot of software. So in discrete manufacturing, it's always about integrated controls, and then you have software to set it up, but you're not using like software to necessarily control your production. And there, I think it's super pronounced. So Jeremy came from the other side, from the IT world, and now trying to tackle the problems that OT has, but just take the boxes and put it in the bucket where IT already solved it. And so what do you think is wrong with education in IT and OT space? So where's the gap?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think there is too much education in this space. Jeremy, I see you saying yes, so I assume you agree.
Yes, it was why I was at the beginning super frustrated. When I came into the industry, it was like, okay, everyone's talking about these concepts, so maybe I just just Google it. At that point of time, you still Google things, and I just couldn't find much like there was. And I think this is true for also a lot of other people. Like they just want to learn about stuff, and then they somehow stumble upon I think there's like real parts for like very hardcore OT stuff. There is Walker Reynolds. There is our stuff.
But the most stuff, so the so-called glorified white papers, then are always then behind like an access wall, which is then, if you want to learn, give me your email address and we just spam you for the rest of time. Yeah, this is a great deal.
Don't get me started on those white papers, because it's always like, we see this problem and buy your solution.
I don't think they're educational content, and also they're not created by any people with technical knowledge. Like mostly it's a marketing thing where a lot of marketing people sit there, and there might be good insights in it, but it's like put in a lot of marketing fluff, so it's very difficult to get it.
And at the end, it's like our solution. I also run basically the go-to-market side in our company. And then if like other like professionals who are advising and always say, why you just not use your great content to capture demand? But I think we are an open source company. It doesn't work that way. If we do that, we lose trust, we lose community. And I think this is also why you're actually already quite successful, because you're paying forward. And I think this is the right thing to do, because you're the only one doing that. So
I'm glad you're saying, because I'm also not really finding a lot of other content as well. Now, what I do, and that's maybe a little sidetrack here, is there is an amazing amount of great content on the IT side of the world, which we can actually adapt to an industrial setting as well. And that's also what we are doing. But even if you look at this from maybe a typical or a normal educational point of view, so universities or schools or whatever, you either select, and there probably are some exceptions, but typically you either select the IT track, which is probably the most common one, computer science or something similar, or you choose more an engineering, automation track, either from I would say a professional standpoint or an academical standpoint. But this thing linking the two worlds together doesn't really exist. So it's not only a problem that you can't really Google it, it's also a problem that you can't really go to school, and people who study don't typically come to the industry with this body of knowledge. So it's a double problem, I guess.
Then also don't align on words. So if you're talking about the same problems, for example, high availability. So in a production sense of things, you need that for SCADA systems, obviously, or like some production critical systems. If they're not recording, for example, in the pharma industry, you're not allowed to sell the products anymore, and they're aligning already early, or trying to, what we are trying, and I think you are also trying to, this is a solved problem. Just use that word, and you find educational materials on that on the IC side is something that's super, super important.
But I think it's because the OT side tends to be very closed. Like there are a lot of things that have already been solved for years, but still they're like they kept like hidden. You don't explain those concepts. So I just did a video series about downsampling with swinging door trending and everything around it, and everyone's just saying like super high compression rates, and nobody's been really like explaining like how does it actually work. And it's all there, like it's a patent from the 90s which is expired. Like it's very well described, everything, and it's just nobody wants to put it out. Everyone, like you said, puts it in white papers, talks about the business impact, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's funny that those concepts in most, I would say, OT tools are always the same. Like I now been working with, for example, 3 different historians, and I learned these downsampling concepts the first time somewhere, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago. And then, you go to the next one and you go like, it's actually the same. And then you go to the next one and you go like, is it really literally the same? Literally the same.
It is the same. It doesn't matter if you call it exception reporting, a report by exception. Deadband is more like the IT term.
But it's in
but
nature,
to come back to this thing where yes, there are silos, and there are, in my opinion, also really, really good reasons to have those silos. I think it is I would say, from a core automation point of view, it is perfectly fine to have your PLC programmers and your SCADA programmers being embedded in your operations organization. Nothing wrong with that. So when I started cybersecurity at BASF almost 15 years ago, we were of the opinion that we should also split things like, for example, infrastructure and cybersecurity. Because we said like, but in cybersecurity, that's something really, really, really special for OT. And I think with time progressing, I think everybody in the world, or most people in the world, started understanding that hackers don't care about ITOT boundaries. But it's you have to collaborate on this topic. Now, there are still, of course, different things, and obviously you need to treat your PLCs and your SCADA systems and your, I don't know, your analyzers, and you still need to treat them in a different way. But I think we kind of figured out that, and we call it on our blog, we call that infrastructure convergence. Because there is no such thing as IT/OT convergence, in my opinion. There is this thing called infrastructure convergence, where we said like, okay, a couple of years ago, most of us kind of understood that from an infrastructure point of view, you can't have double firewalls and you can't have double security event monitors, and you can't have, you don't want to buy your double licenses for your threat protection or something like that. You want an integrated policy, also because you want one person responsible for cybersecurity. But if you look where we are at today, I would say infrastructure convergence kind of done and dusted. And yes, there are some things to take into account. But today we're talking about data convergence. And this data convergence thing, this is where I would say we're really struggling with.
Yeah. So also thinking about how IT and OT actually work from the openness factor. So if you talk infrastructure on OT side of things, everything is super, super close guarded. If you go cybersecurity, it's then security through obscurity. So fundamentally, like this.
Don't let anyone tell them about the IP address. The IP addresses are hidden. Like we can't. There's an Excel sheet with the IP addresses. Whoa, this is top secret.
Yeah, this was like we had like one customer like we wanted to integrate with, and then we wanted to ask me what's actually your IP address of the PLCs we want to connect. But we can only give you one sheet with the IP addresses and one sheet with the names of the machines, because in one sheet it would be a huge cybersecurity risk. Mm-hmm. And then they have like VLANs in between network segments and just staple stuff on each other, like just hiding complexity and hiding stuff. And then I think this is really, if you think about it, really the nature of OT in a lot of things, just being a little bit guarded. If you think about Siemens, like sue everybody who is like going into like their compiling algorithm or going into this newer protocols, etc. Mm-hmm. So this is quite a different way of thinking. So, and this is also the fear that normally OT carries forward, this security, and then you can hide a lot of things behind it.
Yeah. But if you take that mindset and you take the mindset of, Jeremy, what you said, like our super since the 90s compression algorithm, which only we understand, and you take the mindset of, we have these old machines which we need to protect as much as possible, and then you bolt on top of that stack an old school historian. Nothing wrong with an historian. I love my historians, but what then? So then we still have data sitting in this thing. Probably you have to pay extra license costs to get your data out, because That's one engineer who needs data. So yeah, now we need to buy you this. Now we need to sell you this license.
But there's the EU Data Act now, so let's see what happens. But yeah,
the problem is we need this new approach, this new way of thinking, and so from our perspective, and so I already talked about infrastructure convergence and data convergence. Data convergence being a bit the new kid, or the current kid on the block, also fueled by AI, etc., etc. But we also, when we look at the industry, and Alexander, you mentioned, for example, the difference between process and discrete, which is a very outspoken difference. We thought but are all these industries or all these people starting from I would say the same position? Do they have the same starting point? And obviously they don't. So what we started to do is we actually made another differentiation, and we said you have this thing which we call the first movers. First movers are the industries from their legacy, like pharma and process and oil and gas and infrastructure, etc., who they needed to invest in SCADA and DCS already a long time ago. Because if they wouldn't have done that, then you would never be able to run a steam cracker or whatever you're running. The problem is they invested also in a legacy data stack, and we need to account for that. But then we have this group of what we call fast followers, and these fast followers, those are indeed the ones like in discrete, but also in, for example, typical also food and beverage quite a lot, where historically they bought their machines which were equipped with a PLC, and maybe they didn't even have their own OT staff. Maybe they just use the vendor to make changes in that PLC or the HMI, and that's about it. But they have this diverse or this widespread set of machines, and now they see and that's why we call them the fast followers, because now they go but we also want to be data driven. So what do we need to do? And they have a totally different starting point, because they do not have the legacy to build upon. They don't have these typical silos to break through.
Yeah, they have no processes, or they have not they don't need to do a business case of why is this now 10x better than our status quo, because they don't have a status quo and a lot of those problems and solutions. And I think now this,
but they have different issues. I mean, I would say they still have a lot of data silos, because they come from this different starting point. They just bought the machines, and now they have everything there on the shop floor, but they never thought about connecting it. So now when they try to fast follow, I mean, they don't have the big existing systems where theoretically everything is already available and you can't get them out, but they have a lot of very small systems where you can't get the data of.
I think you need to redo, but I think it's really you have this process industries, you have the historians, which you then can argue why we cannot use that in the discrete, which is I think even far worse. But you have then the MES system, which is it also has machine states, it has my work orders, why we cannot use that system. So you're getting always in discussions about why we cannot extend that and have a hyper MES or whatever, which is now also able to have the historian functionalities. And then now the question is, as would be an interested individual from the OT space, so either process or discrete, where do I go now? And I think this is something that we also try to help with. But why do you think, or why do you both think the Discord, the industry 4.0 Discord, is actually that fast growing and that successful in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's because there's nobody else. It's like an honest meeting point for people.
Yeah,
that would be my opinion. I mean.
Salespeople forbidden, yeah.
I mean, there is obviously some sales going on. I remember when I joined it, I was immediately written by a vendor asking me how I was doing. Okay, there's obviously some sales going on, but still there's some open discussions around it. You can ask others, and this is, I think, what's missing. You can't just simply connect to other people. You usually only connect to people from your region in your industry. So if you're
your local industry association,
if you're in food and bev in Belgium, then you will only know people from food and bev in Belgium, and maybe only from the Flemish speaking part, whatever.
And also what they do really well is they moderate those channels really well, and that's also needed, and that also comes with a cost, obviously, because you need those moderators or I don't know whether maybe there are volunteers, but you need to moderate that. I actually had it once that I was giving a presentation last year, and in the room somebody was taking a picture of me and my presentation and posting that on the Discord channel.
Yeah, but this is
So
good.
it's kind of cool. Now what we are doing, so we currently don't do the Discord or the discussion thing. Maybe we should in the future.
But what are you doing to bring people together? I think this is still the what everybody is craving after. Yeah, connect with like-minded people. So
yeah. So at this point in time, because the ITOT Insider started as a hobby project 2 years ago, where we just created content, we created frameworks, we created guidance for people. I think the two most important blobs of information, if you want to call it that way, are our cooperation models. So we have quite some articles on organizational stuff and how do you work together? How do you make this ITOT cooperation reality? And we are just putting that out there, and we actually hear from a lot of people that they are using those models. And then the other blob of content we have created is everything around data ops, data platforms, what are the capabilities you need. And we also hear from a lot of people that they are reusing that content also quite a lot. And I think what is important is we deliberately marked or labeled our content. These concepts, we labeled them as Creative Commons, because I really, really want people to use and reuse and rework that content and to make it better. So that was our starting point. And because we do see the need to do a bit more, I would say, focused training, where the blog is just a couple of articles left and right, and obviously there is some structure, but yeah, okay. But people were asking, like, we also want a learning path, and that's why we created the ITOT Academy, where we talk about the things we love to talk about, but then in a more structured way. And we also create or allow that's the hard word, but we make sure that there is also interaction between the people which are following the academy. So that they get to learn each other, that they maybe get to make a new connection or a new friend on the other side of the world.
Nice. Yeah, I think this is core and essence of moving forward. Like, not you in your own little industry association just being the only technical guy in the room, but actually exchanging with a selected group of people actually moving in the same direction. And we also started this ITOT introduction series, Jeremy. What was your thoughts about that in the beginning? Like, why we did that? So the
introduction to ITOT, it was we were explaining people again and again at that point of time, either paid or non-paid. We're explaining them, hey, how does it work? And one thing that I realized was everyone was always going straight into, this is definitely the way you need to go. And it was now 4 or 5 years ago, and there is still no clear path on what you should exactly do.
It's not solved.
But it's not solved. It's not 500,000 people companies have rolled it out, etc. No. There are certain paths that are definitely more on the viable side. And so what I did was I just created a lot of base content just to align the wording on certain words, which is what I'm doing very often in my articles anyway. So I'm never saying this is definitely the protocol, whatever. I'm always trying to give the background information, the architectural side on things, so that people get a good base understanding on the wording, etc., on the IT side and OT side, and then only then you can make yourself an informed decision. You know what to search for. You know what the words mean, and then it's not like a meeting. I want to have a time series database. No, I want to have an historian. And
that content is really good, and I can't remember in which article I did it, but I know that I linked to one of your article at least one time in one of our blog posts, because it was just really, I would say, well explained. And it's needed. What I do see in general is that while content is there's not a lot of content, we all agree on that, but from the content which exists, most of it is from a technical nature, which is okay, I guess. I would say that at this point in time, although there is still a lot of room for improvement, I think there is plenty of technology available in the world. I agree with you, Jeremy, that we need to agree on some common language. We need to understand that, that if you have a modern DataOps solution, that you shouldn't have to click through a wizard on a Windows server for every edge device. You're rolling out. So I think we kind of need to understand all together that ship has sailed. But what I do see is, and there again is where we really focus on, is that we take enough time to really explain the differences between the silos, to really explain how collaboration is possible, when collaboration makes sense, when it doesn't make sense, because although I use the term ITOT convergence quite a lot, I do not like it. There is, in my opinion, no such thing as... I actually wrote a blog article about that a couple of months ago. I don't know if you know René Magritte, who is a famous Belgian surrealist painter, and he has one of his most famous paintings. It's in French, I'm going to say it anyways. It's Ceci n'est pas une pipe, or in English, this is no pipe. And it's like this painting of a pipe where it's written, this is no pipe. That's a bit the thing from René Magritte. So I wrote this article which I called Ceci n'est pas ITOT convergence, or this is not ITOT convergence, because lots of people talking about it, but they don't really understand what they're talking about. That's what we also need to I would say change, and let's again learn from people on the IT side. I think from an OT perspective, we are so afraid of opening up to the IT world, to the open source world, to, where we all go like, oh yeah, but that's IT, that's something totally different. Have one of you ever read, because this is my favorite book of all time, have one of you read the Phoenix Project written by
No, but I've
Jenkins?
heard about it very often. Wasn't it about the developer who's coming to the company, software developer, and then he's experiencing a lot of problems, and it's kind of like...
So this book by Jenkins, and I know Jim personally, is a really, really cool guy. I think this has sold more than 1 million copies or so, and it started the DevOps movement, more or less. And bit black and white here, but this thing introduces the DevOps movement. But the thing is, if you read it from an IT/OT perspective, this perfectly fits as well on the IT/OT situation. The only difference is in this book, you're talking about Dev and Ops, but both are functions within the IT team.
Yeah.
But if you read it from Dev and Ops being Dev IT and Ops being operations, or the physical operations, manufacturing operations, that thing still perfectly fits. And when I was reading this for the first time, I was still working at BASF with my management hat on, and when I was reading it, there were moments where I actually got stressed because I found myself in the place the main character is at, and I went like, yeah, I also came across this problem, and I also need a solution.
Okay.
So I do highly recommend it. And if you've read this book, then what you will actually see is that lots of our concepts on the organizational change side of things, they actually somehow align with things which are introduced in that one. And then you also understand where we come from, because we really think we can close that gap.
So this is, I don't know if it's a provocative question, but how do you differentiate, or how do you build trust? You already did a very good thing with the Phoenix project, because you can say it's you take the same principles that basically already made a big shift in IT. But how do you differentiate yourself from a lot of the fluff that's out there? So how I mean, in technical things, it's very easy if you just do on technical, because you can do performance comparisons. Architectural, it gets, I know it myself, it gets more difficult, but you can still argue, make a good argumentation. But how do you argue on organizational topics?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question, and it's true. It's not that easy. First of all, but also Willem, my co-author, I think first of all and most importantly is just staying authentic and just, we tell the things we believe are well, not per se true, but could be a good basis for to start off. I think from the change and trust perspective, we have written quite, I would say, a big body of content, which is currently not yet available on the blog, but will be made available in different formats in the year to come. One of the most important things is this, that we say that there is no single, there is no one truth. So you really need to start, I would say, for us, it's about being authentic and giving a recipe for success, but also anti-patterns for failure. I think it's also really important.
Stuff that didn't go well, yeah. So I think the talk about the stuff that didn't go well gives you like a lot of credibility that actually the stuff that worked well actually worked well, and it's not just like fluff about. Yeah, so
we've seen it at so many places, but I do have to say that, and I've been giving also these workshops inside companies on these topics. The thing is that from a company perspective, there needs to be a mandate top down that the company needs to make this work. Now, you cannot force people to cooperate. That's never gonna happen. But if you turn it around and you wait for bottom-up initiatives to really collaborate, or to start collaboration on a bigger scale, that goes too slow because people call it the skunk works. So you have a couple of I would say clever or engineers, typically also younger profiles, or people who really want to make a change, and sitting somewhere in a corner office and say, like, you know what, we will be those 2, 3, 4, 5 people who collaborate and work on something across silos and are gonna make something cool. But in the end, you need budgets. In the end, you need to make that bigger anyway. So while you could start building some trust in a very small team, what I figured out is when I'm standing in front of a management team, when I'm standing in front of people from the operations and the IT side, being my authentic self, giving them a recipe for things which can work and giving them things which can't or can't. It's still about this top-down initiative. And what is also really funny is that I see that every single time is that people, I would say, if you ask the same question to 4 people in the same room, you will get 4 different answers. So if you ask them, like, if, for example, if we show them our collaboration models, and we have 8 or so collaboration models where you can, I would say, start and get through. If you show those collaboration models to people in the room, you'll typically get different answers because of the I would say, the perception of the one who is living it. The one can say, like, oh, we are clearly in this collaboration model, where the other one could go like, yeah, you wish, mm-hmm. You think we might be, I would say, we might have a shared architecture board, but it's basically you dictating to us what to do, So that's also why you need management commitments and explain those concepts, because at a certain point in time within the company, they say, like, okay, now tabula rasa, this is the way we're gonna work. So yeah.
How would you then? So what tip would you then give a person who is then currently at this stage? Maybe found a very small group, maybe with ITOT people, played around, I don't know, with Node-RED, whatever, found the industry forums, your Discord channel. So what recommendation would you give those people to get management attention on this topic?
Well, let's start with show and tell. I think that's probably the best starting point to really show those successes and tell them to whoever is I would say whoever is involved. But that only goes so far. That means that rather sooner than later, you'll need a sponsor, and that's someone who is sitting preferably on the end user side, who says like, yeah, but I want more.
Yeah.
I want more of this. And then you come in this tricky situation where are you going to settle in for, if your sponsor would be somebody, for example, working in a plant, then you come into this tricky situation where you need to ask yourself the question, am I going to settle in for, I would say, rolling the solution or enlarging, scaling the solution for this one plant? Or are we going more for a global approach? So are we taking then that next step? And I think in general, always going for the big global approach first is probably going to be too slow. You need to start small, but think big. And the think big part is not optional, which means that while you are taking those steps, you really need to make sure that you don't have to throw everything out of the fence once you're going to, I would say, scale up to a next one or a next one. So you need to find that balance a bit. But show and tell, get that sponsorship as fast as you can. And then a bit depending on the organization, you probably need to form a first ad hoc team from both sides. And because it is not per se about ITOT convergence, that's really important. So what you see from a team perspective is that typically, if you start in a silo approach, what we would typically advise to do is, for example, to start a small collaboration with a couple of liaisons, architects, engineers from both sides working together on something small scale, which you might want to make more formal in a project organization. But if you would go for a project organization, Industry 4.0 project team, smart manufacturing project team, build whatever project team, all the fancy words, I think one of the anti-patterns there is that if that team reports to an innovation manager, it's somebody disconnected from the operations silo and the IT side, then you are in big problem.
You need to have it from the business side. So from the people who are responsible for the financial KPIs of the company, which could be like the production, the how you call it, the plant manager, which could be like the plant manager who's responsible for the site, someone who so that it doesn't go in super nice fluff project with weird nice words, but actually business impact.
And you know what the problem is if you have this innovation team, so typically and then you come again in dev versus ops, that innovation team, if you don't do it right, they are tasked to innovate something clever and then throw the thing they've found over the fence to either IT or OT and then go like, and you run with it. And you don't want to be in that situation because that's a recipe for disaster.
100%. And I would say also one thing, show and tell, like find a sponsor and be precise about the business case early on. So like it's not only about showing and tell and then saying we are disconnecting all this or we're connecting all the silos and we can collaborate on data and blah, blah, blah. But what does it now do to my bottom line? Do we now have like better quality, less scrap? Do we have higher or like shorter production cycles? Do we have a better OEE or whatever? And then color that in so that you can then also like argue, why do we need a budget? Why do we need a project team? Why can we have half an FTE over 6 months? So this is, I think you need to be a salesperson in that organization who is also able to deliver. So
because what would be really bad is if you make a really successful project, but then it just gets deprioritized by management by saying, no, we have a new production, please do it now. and that's, I think, just will kill the entire project for like 2 years, because nobody else will try to make something like this happen again.
Unfortunately, happens a lot. That's also why you not only need to be a good internal salesperson, you also want to be a good internal marketing person. And I think from these types of projects, you really wanna think about that internal marketing. You want to be super visible. You want people to when I back at BASF, so when we did a rollout of a state-of-the-art new data platform across all plants, we came to a point where I started getting calls from the respective vice president asking me, David, can we please move up? We want to go faster, because we heard from our colleagues and about all the communication you're doing that this is a great project, and it was a great project. But we were in this vibe where people were begging us to be, I would say, more early in the project, which we, you always want to be like, yeah, of course we're gonna do my best, but obviously the project team was also limited in resources. But if you are in this situation where people want to be onboarded with your solution, well, what else can you wish?
Yeah. This is actually a great handover to my question. So David, to have the commute for the person now listening, now coming to the end. So what would be the 3 things, or like the advice? Doesn't need to be 3. If you have only 2 good ones, also follow with that. The things that you would give somebody with you who is now interested in this, not ITOT conversions, to move ahead, be faster, be smarter, be more educated. Yeah.
All the consultants have taught us that all good things come in 3. Yeah?
Yeah, so 3, 5, or 7. Yeah.
I did my internship at McKinsey. Yeah, it's always 3, 5, or 7.
So you probably have to sign a paper where you go like, I will always make slides with 3 outcomes, or
3, 5, or 7.
Yeah. Anyways, so here are our 3. we thought really at like we already had 4 and then 5 and then 2. No, just kidding. So here are our 3. Our model, which we, I would say, promote in our writings, but especially in the academy, is there are 3 circles you have to go through. It's understand, it's cooperate, and it's scale and sustain. Because I don't want it 4, so I said scale and sustain. So understand means that in any case you need to build trust between IT and OT in both directions. And that means that you need to understand each other's point of view. Both have great points of view, but there are also differences, so you need to understand them. If there is a mutual understanding of each other's position, then you can also work on a mutual understanding of what we are going to do. So getting the business case, as you guys also rightfully said, getting that first business case crystal clear. Like this is the thing. If we can solve this thing, then everybody's going to be happy. So that's about understand. Then you have cooperate. Already talked a bit about the cooperation models, because like, if you have a mutual understanding, if you know what thing to solve, then you need to organize yourself to do so. And then if you are organized, then you can start building the technology, which we call scale and sustain. Scale and sustain means that you have something which is scalable, that we don't end up in this pilot projectory type of thing where a lot of people already talked about. So we don't end up in these endless pilots. How? Again, see our writings. But you need to build something which is scalable and sustainable. If you have these 3 ingredients, then you can actually close the loop and go back to understand, because at that point in time, if you went through that loop and you have those early successes, then the next time you are at understand, things are going to be much easier and you can start working towards your next project. That's it.
Yes. And because you're trying to avoid making sales here in a meeting, I would like to do it for you. So David is building something really special out there. So everybody who's listening, he's building the ITOT Academy to, I think, now on the 3 points, perhaps 4, educate everybody out there. So definitely have a look. I think it's a great starting point.
Thank you so much. Would love to welcome everybody over there. You can find it at itot.academy, because the .academy domain apparently exists. So I went like, yeah, why not?
Good choice.
Good choice.
It was a pleasure having you here. Let's not stop educating. It was a lot of fun. therefore, talk to you soon, David. Yeah,
Thanks.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.